Hey everybody, it's Mark Drake. Hey, I have a quick start guide to just using SASS with Visual Studio 2019. This came from interacting with a lot of backend developers over the last couple months who are um, afraid to adopt maybe like a full front end build system, something like with Webpack, for instance, getting inundated and bogged down in their ability to just make quick changes. And so I thought, well, I need to use SASS in my projects. I don't want to cause a lot of friction with my development team, and I want to start to show them some modern practices. Modern being like about 6 or 7 or 8 years now, but I want to introduce these things in a way that just reduces that friction on the team, makes it very easy for them to still use Visual Studio to make their changes, and not really impede them in their process. So, real quick tip: we're just going to install Web Compiler. That's going to solve all of our problems. So thanks, Mads Kristensen, for creating this wonderful Visual Studio extension. You can find it on the Visual Studio Marketplace. You can also install it directly through Visual Studio. I'm going to show you real quick how to do that. So let's go to Visual Studio, and we are just going to create a new project. It doesn't matter what kind of project, but since I've been working with .NET, C Sharp, we're just going to create your basic run-of-the-mill .NET Core web app. Click Next. We're going to click Next. We're going to click Create. Wait a minute. There are a lot of benefits, by the way, to using SASS. This is not going to be the video to explain those benefits to you, but real quick, I mean, besides the huge, just talking about the syntax of the writing SASS is fun. Writing CSS is none. Like it's just not fun. It's easier to write, and it's going to be so much more legible for other developers on your team to read, and therefore easier to understand and maintain. And then after you get past those joys of the syntax, you can start learning about throwing variables in there, so you can you get these programmatic features on top of CSS that you didn't have before. It's really great for taking a design system that whether you buy a theme online or you build one from Bootstrap when you're designing, or designing your own even. Being able to take a more modular approach to how you organize your file structure is going to make it easier for everybody on the team to kind of understand, where do the styles go for my header versus I'm changing a button. Where does that go? Does that go on line 63 432 of custom.css, or does it go in the button.css? Well, it probably goes in button, right? So it's really nice. Maybe I'll do a video later about SASS, but there are so many good ones on YouTube that you should just look up one of those. But let me know down in the comments if that's something you want me to go through. I'll kind of take you through the gist of it. I could also take you through any of the popular front end libraries like Bootstrap or Tailwind, or we could just create our own, which is what I prefer to do. Anyway, so we got Visual Studio here. We've created a new project. It doesn't matter what kind of project you're working on. Most of the time I'm working in MVC. This is .NET Core app. You could do any kind of web-based project you want. The first thing you got to remember is we need this extension. So to install an extension, we go to Extensions, Manage Extensions, and we make sure that we're looking online. And we just type Web Compiler. Pretty simple. The first result's going to be Mads Kristensen, and we're just going to go ahead and install it. It's installed on my system already, so I'm not going to show you that part, but you'll install it. It'll probably ask you to restart. You'll restart, and you'll be back in the same spot. Now, we're not using SASS yet. So real quick, let's do that. Let's create a new folder. And we're just going to call it SASS. Of course, we're going to use SCSS syntax and not SASS syntax. But Visual Studio will probably use that by default. Yep. And so let's just do something real quick. We'll do topography. We'll create a couple SASS files here just to illustrate. We'll call this we'll just call this header, and we'll add one more. So yep. This one we'll just call style sheet. Great, so we have header, style sheet, and topography. And this is just a convention. You don't have to follow it, but it's kind of a convention you might be kind of used to already if you're working with MVC and doing partials with underscores out front. But oftentimes with SASS files, what the underscore represents is this is a partial file. This is a file that gets imported. It doesn't get built by itself. We're not worried about transforming underscore header .sass to a CSS or a minified CSS file. What we're concerned with underscore header is this is going to be imported or rolled up into a file that we are going to transpile. And what transpile means is essentially the browser doesn't understand SASS. It understands CSS, but we want to benefit from the language and features and functionality from SASS. So we need something to transpile our language that we write in SASS down to CSS for the browser. And without, again, this is about minimizing friction on my team. So, you know, baby steps. I'm not going to introduce them to Webpack or Parcel or any other kind of bundling system right now. What I need to solve for is we need to structure our CSS in a way that it makes it easily maintainable. And the developers need to be able to just edit things really quickly. They don't need to worry about running build systems in the background, and they need to be able to check in their changes. And I think that this checks most of my boxes. So now that we have Web Compiler installed as an extension, you'll never have to do that again, by the way. Everyone on your team just goes and installs it one time. That's it. You're done for the life of every project you work on. We have these SASS files now that are part of our project, and we have these partials, header and topography. Let's do something with topography real quick. Something I just do by default is I reset the font size to 16 pixels. And the reason I do that is because I like to use rem values throughout my code, or CSS. So I like that one rem equals 16 pixels. You can pick whatever you want, but this is just for the demo. So we have header, topography, and our style sheet. Our style sheet needs to actually import these files. So we're gonna do header, and we'll do topography. And so, you know, how do we transpile this with Web Compiler? Well, we're going to go over to stylesheet.sass, and we're just going to right-click this file. We have a new context menu item called Web Compiler, and we're just going to compile the file. A couple things happens now. So if you didn't already have this file in your project, this compiler config.json, what actually happens is it creates this file from scratch for you and then adds your first file. And this is just a list. It's just a list. It's just going to say, you know, every file that you've asked Web Compiler to watch in your project is going to have an entry. It's going to have an input, and it's going to track the output. It's also already done us a favor by generating our CSS file and our minified CSS file, which is kind of nice. And if we take a look at these two files side by side, we have our SASS file on the left, and we have a compiled, transpiled, minified file on the right. One thing you're going to notice, being a back-end developer, you're probably going to be looking for a CSS file to make changes to, like normal, and hopefully, hopefully you'll take a second to see that in the bottom right corner there's a watermark that says generated, and so you'll hopefully go up the chain here. You'll go up the tree. Starting with minified, you'll say, oh, okay, well, this is a generated file. Maybe I shouldn't, make my change directly here. This is generated too, looks the same. And then you come to your actual SASS file without the watermark. So it's just another layer of protection. It's just another opportunity to kind of hint to somebody who's not maybe used to front-end files being compiled and transpiled like this automatically, to say, hey, look, if you make a change here, it's going to get lost next time somebody else makes a change to one of these files. So with that being said, all we need to do here is just do our normal, we'll edit this layout file real quick. Style sheet, and we will we'll add the minified file. All right, so all we've done here is this is the layout file. It's basically what you're used to seeing as the master template from like MVC, and we've added our compiled file just because I want to see if the changes have taken place, and we will quickly run this in the browser. And what we're going to look for here is the HTML tag should have font size 16 pixels from our style sheet minified.css. So it's all looking pretty good. It did have a subtle effect to the sizing of our navigation and to our text, it looks like, ever so slightly, by 2 pixels. So yeah, and that's, so I know that that's a real simple example of using SASS in Visual Studio. That's kind of what the point of the quick start guide is. You can use SASS in Visual Studio without bringing in a huge bundling system with a lot of overhead and having to train a bunch of back-end developers on how to use front-end tools. If you're looking for just a quick and easy way to organize your style sheets, or maybe you lost Bootstrap in the translation of like a theme or template that you purchased, and you want to bring those files back in and easily compile them, this is a quick way to do it. Just drop that Bootstrap SCSS folder here. You can edit the variables really quick and easy. It certainly beats find and replace when you're looking for colors or looking for font sizes, and that becomes a mess. So yeah, this is how you add SASS to a Visual Studio project, real quick and easy. Once this is checked in, other developers on the team, once they have Web Compiler installed, it's going to read this compiler config automatically. And if they choose to make a change to these files, they're going to get built for them automatically. And that's a pretty nice win-win in my book. So that's a quick start guide to using SASS and getting started with SASS in Visual Studio 2019. If you got any questions or want me to explore this further, maybe using other frameworks, just drop a comment.